plans, so busy. Every morning we have a list. Today I have to do this and this and this. We have a list, and we are so focused, thinking to our needs, to our problems, to what we have to do, that we are blind to people around us. Moreover, with the crisis in society, with this virus and economical crisis and so on, people are in pain. People are discouraged. People are sick. People suffer. People need the Lord. People need comfort. And we are so many times blind to people around us. We should pray every morning, Lord, use me today. Make me a blessing. If there is somebody that needs my help, open my eyes to see them. Open my ears to hear your voice and to see the opportunities that you give me to be a light, to be salt, to be a blessing. And so I started to pray that prayer long ago. And I learned something pretty strange. When I pray a lot for my problems, it seems to me that the more I pray, the more problems I have. When I focus on self, and when I focus on my problems and my needs. When I pray for others and forget myself, sacrifice self, and pray for others, and pray for God's plans, the more I pray for others, it seems to me that God goes before me and he takes care of my problems. I don't have to deal with them. He fights for me. He fights my battles. It seems to me that he solves my problems without me even stressing over them. And so I started to pray every morning, Lord, use me today. If you have a need, if you have a plan, show it to me and I will serve. Well, I was coming from California. I preached there the whole weekend. Friday night, Saturday morning, 9 o'clock. Saturday morning, 11 o'clock. Saturday afternoon, 2 o'clock. Saturday afternoon, 3 o'clock. Saturday afternoon, 6 p.m. meeting with the leaders. We finished, also had questions and answers. We finished around 9 p.m. I spoke about 7 times that Sabbath. I was so tired. I almost lost my voice. And after speaking so many times, I had to run at 9 p.m. from the church straight to the airport because at 11 p.m. my plane would leave. I was supposed to fly the whole night from California, from the West Coast to the East Coast. When you fly from California, you lose 3 hours because of the time change. So I drove to the airport and then I had to wait in the airport 1 hour and then to fly 6 hours to Atlanta, plus lose 3 hours, that's 9 hours. And then wait 2 hours in Atlanta and then fly another 1 hour and a half to Baltimore and then take my car and drive another 1 hour and a half at home. I would leave at 11 p.m. and get home at 12 noon next day. A whole night of travel. After a whole Sabbath speaking, I was so tired. And so I prayed like every good Adventist would pray. Lord, don't let anybody sit next to me because I want to sleep tonight. On my flight from California to Atlanta, 6 hours, I want to sleep. Please don't let anybody sit next to me. I don't want to talk to anybody. After that self-centered prayer, God impressed me in my mind. What did you preach to others? That we should all serve, that we should all follow God's plan, that you are no Christian if you don't follow God's plan for your life. He is the master. You should follow his plan. You are the servant. We go to God and ask him to bless our plans like he would be the servant and we are the masters. Why do you preach to others if you don't live it? I said, okay, Jesus, if you have a plan for me, I give up my sleep, but I am tired. And God said in my mind, who gives you health? Who gives you life? Who gives you blessings? I said, okay, if you have somebody that needs help, I am willing to sacrifice my night. Jesus sacrificed his life. I'm willing to sacrifice a night to be a blessing for somebody in need. Well, be careful what you pray for. As soon as I said amen, a big lady sat next to me to the window, but she was so big that she took 1/3 of my chair. I had to incline. And then a big lady sat next to me at the aisle in the left, and she was so big that she took part of my chair. So I was squeezed between the two. I cannot even breathe. I said, Jesus, this is going to be the worst trip of my life. 6 hours to Atlanta, I cannot even move. By the time I get there, I'm going to be numb. I was like, whoa. And then the lady in the right started to cry. And she was sobbing. She was crying. I said, can I help you? She says, no, leave me alone. I said, okay, that's easy. I left her alone. But the lady in the left says, how can you help her? I said, well, I don't know, but I can pray for her. And the lady says, you believe in prayer? I said, yes. She says, me too. I didn't start preaching her about prayer. People don't like to be preached, to be told what to do. But people like to talk. If you let them talk and listen, they would appreciate you. They would say, this is a person who cares for me. He listens. So I said to her, instead of preaching, I said, tell me what you believe in prayer. And she started to talk, 10 minutes. And I listened quietly. And she says, oh, usually when I talk to people, they jump and they say, but you are a good listener. I said, thank you. After she was done, she says, now you tell me what you believe in prayer. And I didn't give her a sermon or theology about prayer. Ellen White says that Jesus spoke with stories and parables. And then she says, God who created the human body knows how we function best. And she says, theology goes only to the mind, but stories go to the heart. And she says, you'll never win a soul before you win the heart. And so instead of giving her theology, I gave her a few stories, how prayer works. And people can argue with theology, but they cannot argue with your story. And so I gave her a few stories how God answers prayers. And after that, I gave her some explanation, some theology. When I was talking to the lady on the left about prayer, the lady from the right stopped crying and she started to listen. And then she says, well, I guess you can pray for me. I said, okay, what do you want me to pray for? And she says, when I got on the plane, I got a text message from my husband. He said that he is divorcing me. And she says, my life is terminated. And she started to cry again. I had a prayer for her. After I finished praying and I said, amen, she says, it didn't help. What do you expect? After I pray, your husband is going to call you and come back. What do you? I kept quiet, but in my mind, what do you want, lady? I prayed for you. So I prayed in my mind. I said, Lord, I don't know how to help this lady. Please give me wisdom. You promised wisdom to those who ask. I claim your promise. I'm not asking wisdom for myself. I am asking wisdom to know how to help this lady. And God impressed me. And I said to her, lady, I'm going to tell you something, but please let me finish. Don't get angry. Don't interrupt me. Just let me finish. She opened her eyes big. And I said, lady, nobody loves you today and hates you tomorrow. This guy divorced you 3 years ago. Now he divorced. He texted me today. I said, let me finish. This guy, 2-3 years ago, stopped talking to you, became a stranger, stopped coming home early, stopped giving you money, started to scream slowly, got worse and worse in your family, started to scream at you, started to call you names, and then he started to beat you. And then, without telling you, he started to cheat on you. And your life became extremely hard. And your family became a pain, stressful. Every time you would come home, he would scream at you. You had terrible life. Your life became a living hell. And you were stressed and you are afraid to go home. And now he just got the courage to tell you that he's divorcing. She says, are you a prophet? I said, nope, I'm only a pastor. I'm not a prophet. She says, how do you know? That's exactly what happened. I said, well, I didn't know how to help you. So I prayed in my mind that God would give me wisdom. And God impressed me to tell you this. Oh, God talks to you? I said, God talks to everybody who listens. In the Bible, Jesus says, my sheep know my voice. Revelation says, he who has ears to hear what the Spirit says. We just never listen. We go to God and talk, but we never listen. And so I said to her, now it's going to be very hard for you for a few months. But when you go home, nobody's going to scream at you. You'll have peace. And you need to start praying that God will give you healing. And when God gives you healing, 6 months, 1 year down the road, don't get married to somebody just because he looks good, Schwarzenegger. Because she told me, he looks so good. I said, don't get married to somebody because he looks good. Marry somebody who loves Jesus, because if he loves Jesus, he's going to love you. And she says, I believe God put you next to me. I believe I need that. But what can I do now to get rid of this pain in my heart? I said, don't dwell on it. Don't focus. Don't think about it. Well, I cannot help. I said, take this book, because if you focus on something else, you forget about this. Take this book. I gave her my book, One Miracle After Another. Take this book and read it. She says, I don't read books. I just watch TV. I said, well, that's another problem that you need to fix. She says, but I don't like to read. I said, hey, you ask for help? Take the book and read it. No, I don't read. Read one page. It's not going to kill you. 2-3 minutes. Read one page. If you don't like it, give it back. Well, I can read a page, I guess. I said, okay, read. She started to read. She read a page, 2 pages, 3 pages, 4 pages, and she started to laugh, and then read more, and then she started to cry, and then she gave me a hug, and then she was crying and reading, and she gave me another hug. I said, that's enough. And then she kept reading and reading. By the time we got to Atlanta, 6 hours, she finished the book. She says, can I keep the book? I said, yes, you can. Why? I want to give it to my children. They need to read this book. Everybody should read it. She said to me, I want you to know, God put you next to me. And then she said, I was planning to go home and kill myself. But God put you next to me. You saved my life. I said, lady, I didn't save your life. Jesus saves. But I said, I do believe that all things work together for a purpose, and that God put you next to me. A few months later, she emailed me, and she says, I started to pray. I started to study. I found a church. I joined the church. I want you to know, you didn't just save this life, but you saved me for eternity. I'm going to see you in heaven. What if every church member would daily make themselves available and be a blessing and let God use them for the neighbor, for the coworker, for the colleague? What if every church member would serve? God called us to serve. God called us to serve. I want you to read this with me, this quotation. I have many quotations. I have about 20 pages of quotations, but we don't have time. We are going to read just 1 or 2. Every soul that Christ has rescued is called to work for saving the lost. This work has been elected by Israel. Is it not elected today by the church? Every follower of Christ has a work to do as a missionary for Christ in the family and in the neighborhood and in the town or city where he lives. All who are consecrated to God are channels of light. God has made them instruments to communicate to others the truth. Isn't that powerful? Everyone has to work. Everyone has to work. Everyone. Everyone means everyone. Doesn't matter age. Doesn't matter rich or educated or poor or not educated. Doesn't matter. God has called everyone. And God is going to make everyone responsible. God is going to say, where are the people that I gave you in care? And we need, as leaders, to train our churches, to educate, to explain, to empower, to prepare them and send them to work. We need to explain to them. Ellen White says, in fact, in Christian Service, that God didn't call us to work because he needs us. God doesn't need us. He can use stones. He can use a donkey. But she says, as we serve, it strengthens us. It develops us. The more we serve, the more we grow. And she says, we become more and more like Jesus when we serve. God called us. And then she says, very interesting, that only those who serve will be in heaven. Wow. Only those who serve will be in heaven. Jesus came to serve, and he came us to serve. And we need to educate our members, everyone, and send them to serve. Send them to work. I remember I was about 17, and I became the choir director. And I prepared what I thought the best Christmas program in the history of mankind. We worked 4 months. We prepared children choir, men choir, and the church big choir with men and women. We prepared poetry and drama, and we had a nice Christmas program, and we presented the program on that Sabbath, and I was so proud. This was the best program the church has ever seen. And I go to my father and I said, did you enjoy the program? And my father, very cool, says, who prepared the program? I said, I didn't want to say me because I didn't want to brag. I said, we prepared the program. And then he said to me, and who listened to the program? I said, well, the church. And he said, who is the church? I said, we are the church. And my father says, son, if you have a cow and the cow makes milk and then the cow drinks the milk, then why do you have a cow? I said, what do you mean? And he said, son, you don't do agriculture in the barn. You do agriculture in the field and bring the harvest in the barn. Jesus didn't send you in the church to prepare the programs for the church, and then you listen to your own programs and then you applaud yourself and that's it. Jesus sent you to go, not to stay inside the four walls. He said, go from Jerusalem, Judea, to the end of the world. Go to the streets, go to the corners, go to the intersections. And my father said, God called you to go and prepare the programs for them and go to them or invite them to the church. If you make the program and you listen to the program, why do you have a church? I was in shock. I said, you don't appreciate my work. And he said, no, you don't understand what is mission. What is mission? God says, I have a plan for you. Israel failed to fulfill God's plan and they were rejected. In Exodus 25, the Bible verse says that they were called to be a kingdom of priests. Ellen White says that they were called to be a light to spread God's love to the whole world because God wants everybody saved. They closed themselves within walls and isolated themselves from the others. The others were unclean. And therefore, God rejected them. And God has called us in 1 Peter to be a kingdom of priests. God has called us to be a light, to be salt, to be a blessing, to preach the gospel, to save the lost. If we don't do that mission, God will reject us. If we don't do it, the stones will do it, but we'll be responsible. You are the watchman. If you give the signal and the others don't listen, their blood is going to be required from their hand. But if you don't give the signal, their blood is going to be required from your hand. You are not in the neighborhood where you live to have a house. You are there to save your neighbors. You are not in school to have education. You are there to save your colleagues. You are not in the job to have a salary. You are there to save your co-workers. And God wants you to save them. When we moved in Kentucky long ago, right now we live in Maryland. When we moved in Kentucky, I didn't pray, God, give me a house. I said, Lord, give me a house where I can reach the neighbors, where the neighbors need help. And after we bought the house, it was on the mountain. I wanted to plant a garden. I like to have my own vegetables. I like to go in my garden. That's where my stress goes away. You know, I talk to my tomatoes. So I wanted to plant a garden, but nothing came because of the rocks and the mountain, too much stone, too much rock. So I tried again and again and again. And then I prayed, Lord, if you bless my garden, I'm going to share 50% of the garden with my neighbors and use the opportunity to pray with them. As soon as I prayed that prayer, our garden exploded. If I show you pictures, 50, 60 tomatoes on each plant, 2.8, 3 pounds a tomato. Our garden became something like in Canaan. People would come and take pictures. I have pictures. Extremely, extremely productive. I mean, I have pictures. I have proof. And we had so many tomatoes. We gave to the church every Sabbath. I went to every neighbor. I even called the church and we had a tomato fight at my house. Yes, indeed. And the church loved it. They said that was the best day they remember. I went to every neighbor and I gave them tomatoes and the book. And I said, let me pray for you. And next neighbor, I want to give you some tomatoes from my garden. God bless me. I have too many. I want to give you some tomatoes and the book and have a prayer. Tell me what to pray for. I want to pray for your family, for your wife, for your children, for your health, for your job. After I went from house to our neighbors, the neighbors started to call me the pastor of the neighborhood. And they would come to me and say, my son is sick. Would you pray for my son? My wife lost her job. Would you pray for my wife? I have diabetes. Would you pray for me? They started to read books too. You see, God has put you there for a purpose. I want to clearly specify that we will not finish the presentation today. We'll continue tomorrow. But to clearly specify that our churches and our schools depend on the leadership. You look in Israel history, when the king led them to God, the whole nation was faithful. When the king himself was not necessarily very faithful, then the whole nation went down. Our churches depend on the pastors. And if our pastors would train them, hopefully they do that by God's grace. Hopefully, if they do, praise the Lord. If our pastors train them and send them, not only preach, but prepare them and preach on mission and send them to the neighbors and send them to work. Imagine if every church member works. Imagine the results. I'm going to give you another example. I talked to one of my friends. He has a business. He is very well to do, a big business. And I said, every morning, say like Isaiah, here I am, Lord, send me. Here I am, Lord, use me today. Open my eyes to see people in need. Help me to see the opportunities that you give me. Use me today. And he called me a few months later and he said, Pavel, since I am praying that prayer, it doesn't happen every day, but it happens kind of every 4, 5, 6 days, every week. God gives me opportunities that I didn't see before. I said, well, give me a story. He said, okay. He says, I was driving. He's in Michigan. In Michigan, it snows so much. It is so much mountains of snow. When I was in school in Andrews, in Michigan, during the winter, when they would plow the snow in front of the mall, the snow was as tall as the mall, as the building, a lot of snow. He says, I was driving through snow. It was snow for 3 days. I was driving. And he said, I was praying, Lord, if you have a plan for me today, open my eyes to see it. And he said, God impressed me to look to the right. So I looked to the right, and far away in the field, I saw a bump, a white bump. So he said to his wife, honey, there is a white bump far in the field. His wife said, honey, the whole field has bumps and the whole field is white because it's snowing. He says, no. I did see a white bump far away. He went to the next exit. He turned around. He went back to the previous exit. He turned around and came again on the same segment of the road, driving very slow. And he looked to the right, and sure enough, far in the field, a white bump. He parked the car on the shoulder, put the hazard lights, and then he walked far away through the snow. When he got there, down in the snow, there was an old man, white hair, white robe, snowed over. He had a band here around his wrist that would say his name, and there would say Alzheimer's. The man left nursing home to go home, but he had Alzheimer's and he forgot where home is, and he fell down and it snowed on him. My friend took the old man in his arms and he ran to the car and he drove fast to the closest hospital. And the doctor said, if you are 2-3 minutes late, would have been too late. You saved his life. The doctor called the daughter of the old man. The daughter came and says, I'm so glad you didn't hit him with a car in the road. He says, he was not in the road. He was far in the field, fallen down, covered with snow. Then she says, how did you see him? Because when people drive, they focus on the road and they think always about their own problems. They never look around. How did you see him if he was far in the field covered with snow? He says, well, if I tell you, you will not believe me. You think that I am crazy. Tell me. Well, I prayed, Lord, if you have a plan for me today, use me. And God impressed me, and God said in my mind, look to the right. She says, God talks to you? He says, yes. She says, I want to be baptized in your church. He said, well, we don't eat pork. Doesn't matter. I eat what you eat. Well, we don't worship on Sunday. We worship on Saturday. Doesn't matter if you worship Tuesday or Saturday. I worship when you worship. Then why do you want to be in my church? And she said, because your God is real. The other churches have a theory of God. You have a real God. I want a church where God is real. What if every member would say that prayer every day? Lord, use me today. Use me today. Think about that. I was in Cuba many times. And I was doing evangelism. And the lady came every night. When she came to church, she brought 150 to 200 children. I said, lady, how can you bring so many, 200 children every night? What do you tell them? And she said to me, Pastor, it's not what you tell, it's what you do. I said, okay, what do you do? She said, well, it's too much to explain. Come tomorrow, 2 o'clock, and you will see. Okay. Next day, 2 o'clock, I took the pastor. We went to visit the lady. When I went there, she was very poor. Very, 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 very poor. Her house was not a house, was plywood, very small, smaller than my wife's closet, smaller than my tool shed. It's very small, very small. I mean, a little bed in the left, a little bed in the right, and the space between the two beds, you could hardly walk sideways. Very small, very poor. And at 2 o'clock, like 200-300 children came, and she asked them in front of the house to sit down on dirt. They sat down, and then she said, do you have the papers signed by the parents? I said, what papers? She said, just watch, you'll see. Do you have the papers? They all gave the papers. And she says, now if you have the papers, you can eat. And she had rice. And every kid came, and she put a spoon of rice, next child, a spoon of, and after they all ate, they came second time, and then they came third time, and she gave them rice until everybody was full. They said, now sit down and listen. And then she said, you kids usually play and talk, you never listen. I want you to know, if you listen and remember the story that I'm going to teach you and the song, you tomorrow can come again. And the way you can prove to me that you listen, I want you to go home and tell your parents the story that I told you. If you remember the story to tell your parents, if your parents sign on a piece of paper that you knew the story, then tomorrow you can come again and eat rice. After they left, she said to me, I want them to sign the paper. I want their parents to sign the papers that the kids did listen and did remember the story. Because this way, I don't preach only to the kids. I have the kids go and preach to their own parents. I cannot reach their parents, but the children can reach their own parents. And I want these 300 children to preach to their families. None of them are Adventists. And she said to me, these families don't have a job. They don't have food. God has blessed me. I have a job. And she said, I make $14 a month. I said, how much? She said, 14. Whoa, so little. She said, yeah. And she says, I cannot afford to buy a lot of food, but I can buy rice. And she opened a big mouth. She said, God has blessed me. I'm happy. I can feed 300 children, Pastor. She says, it's the greatest blessing to share my salary with 300 children, to feed them and to preach the gospel to them, and they preach to their parents. She says, I want to see them in heaven. I want to see my neighbors in heaven. She said, I am blessed because I can share my salary with them because they don't have a salary and feed the whole neighborhood. And through the children, I can preach to the parents. I said, lady, may God bless you. You share your salary to reach your neighbors. I said, I don't have cash with me except $50. Take it and use it. She looked at the money. I've never seen so much money in my life. $50. She said, take it back. I cannot take it. I said, come on, take it. No. I gave it to the treasurer. I said, use it for her ministry to feed those children. What if every church member would go to the neighbors, bring them some cookies, and then say, I want to pray for you. What if every church member did like that lady? Oh, what a blessing. Ellen White says, nobody prays right. She says, nobody prays right seeking a blessing for self. We will never get blessings when we sing blessings. God didn't call you to be blessed. God called you to be a blessing. And to the degree that you bless others, to that degree God can bless you, so you have where to bless others from. God has called us to be a blessing. My brothers, my sisters, our time is up. I don't want to go over time. I will see you again tomorrow night. But God is calling us to mission. Jesus is coming soon. Jesus is coming sooner than we think. Jesus, we just look around and we know Jesus is finally coming. And this is no time to lose. We need to finish. Ellen White says Jesus could have come long ago, but we didn't finish our work. We have a work to finish. It's time to finish the work that God has given us. And we need to call our members, all of them, to work. All of them. What if every church member would go to the neighbor and say, I want to pray for you? May God bless you, your division, the leadership, from the division, from the unions, from all the fields, the leadership from the schools and colleges and universities, and the pastors and the members. May God bless that area with revival, with his blessing, to the degree that the work there is going to explode like in the disciples' day, with thousands and thousands of baptisms, because Jesus is coming. God bless you.